Hi everybody, I'm Diana. Welcome to my channel Sew in Common. Today is Riley Blake Block Challenge Day, and this week we are talking about block number 15. We only have one more block to go, and then we will have all of our blocks for this challenge. So if you haven't joined us before, this week's block is perfect for the beginner. Because it only deals with two Build a Quilt segment blocks or two quilting patchwork blocks, and it's going to be super simple for you to make. And I'm going to show you how you can get your free Build a Quilt pattern at the end of the video. And hang on, let me grab my hoop, because as you all know, here we do Build a Quilt with the hoop of our embroidery machine. That's right. All the blocks you're seeing, all made with our embroidery machine. So just to do a quick review, this was last week's block. Let me grab my folder. I always think I have everything ready and then I don't. I will tell you, it's been a crazy, not great week for me. I mean, Wednesday when I was gone all day and all that all could not have gone better. Everything was wonderful. The rest of the week has just been grotesque, just to put a word on it. You know, we all have those weeks, right? So it'll get better. But this was last week's block called, let's see, I'll hold it up so it's the right direction. Inside Out Star. It was block number 14 by the one and only Melissa Mortensen. It was a really great fun block to make. Lots of great colors. And I talk about how I chose the same colors, but I chose different fabrics for each time that color is represented in the block. And I think it worked out better than the way they've laid it out. And I'll show you that real quick here. This was the pattern. That's how it's laid out. So the inside out, meaning you have a negative star and a positive star. And they did great with doing the inside out idea in these two, but when it came to these two, they added a different color, and instead of just choosing the same two colors, which is fine, totally cool, but for my eye, it wasn't the perfect way to do it. So I used the same exact colors, so I didn't like change this color up from orange, but I chose 8 different fabrics in this block to do it. So I will link last week's block at the end of this video so that you can watch it and you can get that idea of what I'm talking about, because right at the end of my chat with you all, I have a little bit of video there that is all about working with the different colors for this block. But this week's block, Put a Spin on It, that's what it's called, Put a Spin on It, is right here. And again, it's a super easy block to make with the Build a Quilt system, because we're only dealing with 2 segments: half square triangle, the mama block of all patchwork, and solid squares. That's all we're dealing with. But before we get into more detail, let's talk about who the designer was. It was the one and only Amanda Niederhauser. I bet a lot of you, whoops, that's the wrong one. I don't want to bring that up. Here we go. I bet a lot of you know Amanda Niederhauser, or the Jedi Craft Girl. I must say that I've seen Amanda on the My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop live Wednesday night show. She comes sometimes with her daughter, I believe, and kind of fills in or works with them on stuff. And she's super great. She's a lovely, lovely lady. Let's tell you some more about Amanda. Amanda grew up by her mother's side sewing, playing with buttons, zippers, notions. So she's been steeped in the fabric art crafts, it sounds like, since she was a little girl, like a lot of us have been. She loved going to fabric stores. Amanda has a real love for fabric. It says in here that the one thing that keeps her quilting, she's been quilting about 20 years. The one thing that keeps her quilting is the love of fabric. And I couldn't agree with you more, Amanda, because all that wonderful, yummy fabric is sometimes just too good to be true. And she actually writes her own patterns and publishes them on her Etsy shop. If you go to the Riley Blake page under the the Riley Blake Block Challenge page and all of that, you can bring up this particular biography on Amanda, and it has a link to her Etsy shop and to her Jedi Craft Girl blog. I love that she chose Jedi Craft Girl as her blog, because you guys know I like Star Wars a little bit. So I think that is she has a wide range of interests reflected in her designs, apparently. And Amanda is married and she has 3 children, and I have seen one of her lovely daughters on that same Wednesday night show that I was telling you about. She lives in Southern California, and she can also be found on Instagram at Jedi Craft Girl. And here are Amanda's fabric lines with Riley Blake to date. Now, I will admit, I don't have any of Amanda's design fabrics, but I have done a few of her patterns. And when we talk about translating patterns that are made for traditional piecing into the Build A Quilt system, Amanda's patterns are really great for that. So if you're looking for good patterns that you can translate, check out Amanda Niederhauser's patterns, because they're super great for that. And looks like she has one coming out in August that I may just have to find, because it's called Stay Wild. I can bring it up bigger, but you guys can't see it. But this is my kind of pattern set right here, this Stay Wild. But it looks like it's not coming out till August 2024. So you might want to make yourself a little note there if you're interested in any of Amanda's fabric collections. Alrighty, so that is this week's designer, Amanda Niederhauser. So let's look at the Put a Spin on It block. And it's the perfect name for this block, because really all we're dealing with is a pinwheel that's been expanded just a little bit, kind of like those whirligig pinwheels we used to have when we were kids, that are on the stick and the air catches them and they just whirligig and spin. Looks exactly like that. This is also, to me, a very simplified version of a Dutchman's puzzle block. Now, I think if you wanted to, you could put this block with a Dutchman's puzzle and have a beautiful quilt. So that's another block that, although not the same, is very complementary to Amanda's block. And remember, all of these blocks are 10 by 10 finished. And that's the size for the segments and all that you get with your Build a Quilt pattern. So this week, the colors are magenta. So the 4 corners are the magenta. You have 4 half square triangles in the center to make up your pinwheel, which are green and gold. And then you have 4 more half square triangles that are white and green that make up the outer like spokes of the little spinning whirligig. And then there are 4 white squares as well. So super easy to make. The square, 2 steps, you can pop those out like literally in seconds. And then you've got 8 half square triangles you're going to make, 4 in this color selection and 4 in this. All that information is in your Build a Quilt pattern set that you can get, and I'll show you where you can get that in a minute. But all of those are there. So very easy to find, very easy to get. And you can kind of see all the designers using different colors. They're all using the same fabric lines, but that was last week's that go with that. I like how all those bright colors are together. And then I have the one that was done by Amy Smart, the Dalesford here. Look at all those beautiful bright colors together. Isn't that going to be a gorgeous quilt when it's done? Absolutely love that. But put a spin on it. Really simple block. Now, let me show you. Are you guys, I know some of you say you watch just to find out where this block is going to go. I love that. Let me show you where the Put a Spin on It block is going to go in the overall layout. Let me bring up my screen and share that with you. Did I drop it out for some reason? I don't know. Oh, there it is. Okay. There we go. There is our block for this week right here. So we finished row 2 now, and there is the put a spin on it block. So we only have one more space to fill. I'm getting really excited to find out what that's going to be. Aren't you guys excited? I know I am. And so that is the quilt so far. Now they're going to add sashing and borders and stuff to it, and I will prepare that information for you too when we get it on the last date, which is all about the layout and stuff. But again, I'm going to be doing mine just this layout, just the 40 by 40 quilt, because it's such a perfect size for the wall. But now we have basically all of it finished but that one square, and I'm super excited. And you guys know, because I've shared with you last week, that I am going to be removing 4 of these blocks and putting in extra of, so actually I'm removing 3 of them, and I'm going to be putting in extras of one particular block that you're seeing in here now. I'm going to use 4 times, because I'm going to kind of redo mine just a little bit, because that's just the way I am. I can't leave well enough alone a lot of times. And you're free, folks, to do that as well. You can put your blocks in any order. You can use whatever ones you want. But in the end, let's put this quilt together somehow, okay? Because that's the whole idea of having done this all these months, is to do this beautiful quilt. And so here is the Build a Quilt pattern set. That's the pattern for traditional piecing that you can get over at Riley Blake. But this is the pattern set, which has the layout. I'm not going to take it. It's the layout in there. Well, I suppose I could take it out. How lazy is that, not to want to take it out? Okay, so it's got all the original info. It has the fabric cut sheet, and the fabric cut sheet will tell you on this one how many to make of each one. And then you get a layout. Let's talk about that for just a second. For laying out this, you will end up with 3 rows to put together. But what I want you to do is put the bottom and the top row together, put them together in sets of 2, and then bring your sets together. And then put your pinwheel together in the center. And then put these 2 together and these 2, and add them to that pinwheel. And then you get that wider 3rd row. Then you can add the top and the bottom to it. Really simple. We've done that before with some of the other blocks. You just want to follow that same idea. It's much easier. With this pinwheel, because you want to try to get as accurate as possible on your point here in the center and all, it's easier to do this pinwheel as a single unit and add these pieces on the side than to do these as rows, where sometimes your rows can get a little wibbly on lineup. It's just a little harder to do that. So do your pinwheel as a single segment and then add to it. I think that will work out better for you. And then, of course, all the other information that you'll get in your sheet about, or in your pattern set about how to, what supplies and stuff you're going to need, all of that normal stuff that comes out every week. Now, at the end of this video, I am going to have the demo videos for the half square, triangle, and the square. I know they're simple, but there's so many of you that haven't done it before. I want to make sure that there's a demo out there for you. And for those of you that have, can just get started. In fact, I know several of you have already gone out and grabbed the pattern, because I did put the pattern out yesterday, which is our normal Riley Blake day. But because I had to be gone all day Wednesday, I wasn't able to get the video out to you today. So let's talk about where you can get your Riley Blake Block Challenge Build a Quilt set over at the website, sewincommon.com. All of the Riley Blake sets are free. And of course, you can find all of our other Build a Quilt sets there, all of our patterns and all of our segment pieces. And I want to remind everyone, whoops, that's the wrong piece, that our Build a Quilt Basic Block Set 1 and our Basic Block Set 2 are each on sale, a really nice sale. They're down to $35 for each set, because at the end of May, these sets, which are your basics that give you all the basic pieces in several sizes, your half square triangle, your square, your quarter square triangle, your flying geese unit, your split rail unit, and your diamond and square. These 2 sets as they are now are going away, completely going away, because we're kind of remastering all of this. And all of these will come back in as a new set. If you already own sets 1 and 2, you will get anything I add to that new set for free. So you're not going to say, oh, now I've got to go buy that whole new set to get the new pieces if there are any in there. No, but this is all being remastered. So get those while you can now at those lower prices. And because you only have through the end of May, and then those sets won't come back because they're going to be remastered into one big basic set. We're kind of renaming it in the whole bit. So you'll want to take advantage of that now. And then, of course, our monthly block set for the Blooming Star is out there. That's our Build a Quilt block set for this month. Last week, we only worked with the quarter square triangle and the triangles. It was fun with triangles. And we started, this was just part of it, but we made a bunch of these and we worked with different ways to put these quarter square triangles when they're regular on point within the block. So we're talking this month in Quilt Lab about putting blocks on point within the quilt. So that pattern set, you'll get 3 sizes, 6x6, 8x8, and 10x10 over at the website as well. Let me put that up one more time. There's your website, sewincommon.com. Alrighty, everybody. Again, at the end here, there will be the 2 demo videos, and you can go ahead and get your pattern sets out at the website now. They've been out there if you haven't gotten them yet. And as always, everybody, thank you so much for your support of Sew in Common. I wouldn't do this without all of you, because, you know, I want to quilt and have fun with other like-minded folks, right? So thank you all so much. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click the subscription button. You've got over 406,000 friends that want to do this with you here at Sew in Common and Build a Quilt. And please like and share the videos. That way others get to know them as well, and can join in the fun too. Because Build a Quilt really was created by a need from a lot of my fellow embroiderers that wanted to quilt but didn't want to do it in the traditional way. So it's a great way to start quilting if you've never quilted before. It's a great way to quilt if you've had any hand problems, and it's a great way to quilt if you're an embroiderer as well. And even like we talked about last time, even some of our Build a Quilt stuff is perfect for a traditional piecer in quilting, because like our triangle system will work with any block, no matter how you put it together, for putting your pieces on point. So that's always a lot of fun to be able to cross those lines together. So that's our website, and please subscribe. Okay, I feel like I'm rambling, but like I said, this has been a crazy week. Again, thank you to all of you who have joined me today. I want to welcome in all of our new viewers and all of our new subscribers. It's great to have you as part of the Build a Quilt and Sew in Common family. Until next time, everybody, have a great rest of your week. Hope to see you Sunday at Quilt Lab. Until next time, sew life beautiful. Okay, so here we are at the machine, and we're going to be doing the square. Now, you're going to say, I know, why would we just stitch one piece down on the stabilizer and when we could just cut it and sew it? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Part of the technique of piecing in the hoop is to give quilters who have never quilted and pieced before some guidelines to help them with final sewing, and to give all of us the ability to sew our quilt together without having to have a 1/4 inch foot on our sewing machine, without having to worry about accuracy when we're doing that, but even though we're not worrying about accuracy because all of our seam lines and things are built in, it's actually helping us to be more consistent. And consistency in our quilting is what makes our quilts really so beautiful. You know, I like to say about quilting, you can do anything you want in quilting, and don't let someone scream at you if you have like one little point that isn't exact. Perfect is the killer of joy in quilting, I think. I don't recommend you ever trying to be perfect. But what this does is helps you to be consistent so that you get everything just as it should be, and your project will come together nicely. But you won't have to worry about, oh, is my quarter inch a good quarter inch, a scant quarter inch? I've been quilting for over 50 years, and this really is going to help you with all that consistency without having to worry about it. And it gives you another thing as well. It gives you a final box so that you have that stitch guide when you go to stitch your squares together. So I'll show you more of that when we do our trimming. So here we are, we're all set up for our stitch out again. Now the square really only has two pieces. We're going to do our border just like we've done before. I've done everything on this wash away stabilizer, and I will admit this one is by far the easiest and fastest. In fact, according to my machine here, at 700 stitches a minute, this is all stitched out in a minute or less, so pretty quick. Now let's speak about speed for a little bit. I always recommend that you don't piece above 700 stitches per minute. You can do your embroidery that way and all, but quilting is not about speed. And whenever we go and start to worry about speed, high speeds, that's when we end up with more mistakes, even in this process. So I say don't go above 700 stitches a minute on your machine speed. If your machine doesn't even go that high, good. That's good. Usually I do 600 to 700 stitches a minute on my machine. I put my little bit of glue there. Now I'm going to lay my square of fabric down, and I can kind of feel where my border is. Okay, it's not exactly even on all sides, but it doesn't matter. I have plenty of fabric there for trimming. Now my second and my last piece, because I don't really have to do that basting or that stitched out border again because it's really doing it for me now. I am just going to stitch this down. This is my final stitch step for doing my square. So now all of my squares are going to be exactly the same size. That's the consistency thing, not only with your seams, but when you cut. A lot of times, oh, we think we cut everything right. And if you've been a quilter in more traditional ways, you know what I mean when I say squaring up a square. You never have to square up when you piece in the hoop. It's really nice not to have to do that. So this one is done just like that. So our square is finished. Now we're going to go over under my other camera, and we're going to talk about trimming these out, and then we'll be ready for our last little bit of our talk here on our how-to video for Build a Quilt in the Hoop Block Basics Set 1. Okay, so here we are at my machine camera, and the first square block that we're going to create is the half square triangle. Now we're going to go through and make the half square, the quarter square, and the square in the hoop, and then we'll go back over under my other camera and we will talk about how we trim these, because you trim all blocks in that manner. So we'll do those all at once. You can see here I have my tools available, my scissors, my glue stick, my stylus if I need it, my seam roller, and my embroidery tape. And right here I have my two fabrics. So I've also loaded my file on my machine. On this particular machine, I loaded it through a USB stick. You might be able to load your files through the Wi-Fi if you have a more modern machine that can do that. So somehow you have loaded your file onto your machine, and you should know how to complete that. Now today I'm going to be stitching in a black thread so that you can see it a little more easily. I have loaded my hoop with a standard wash away stabilizer, one that we would use for, say, making freestanding lace. So now I'm going to go to step 1, which is basically going to give me what I call the border outline. And you'll find that information also written in the written instructions along with the step-by-step diagrams as well. So it is just stitching out my main border. And because we are doing a square, of course that border is a square. And what it's showing us is that this finished box is going to be our finished size. Okay, when we trim it out, we'll talk about what else this box represents for us in the piecing process. Now, a half square triangle is always 2 pieces of fabric. I've chosen this yellow and this polka dot, this aqua with the light yellow polka dot. So I have those prepared. But the second step also gets stitched directly to your stabilizer, and it will give us the placement outline for our first piece of fabric, which is going to be our lighter color or our yellow fabric. So let's do that now. Now, I will give you one tip here, because this was something that my shop where I purchased my machines and I came across. I have another machine which is a embroidery only. It's not a combo machine like this one is. And I kept having problems with it not catching stitches on my straight stitch, which is basically the only stitch we use when we're piecing. And what we found out was that it actually needed a sewing bobbin case. So in this machine, because it's a combo, I have a bobbin case for embroidery and a bobbin case for sewing. The straight stitches do better if you use the sewing bobbin case rather than the embroidery bobbin case, because really all we're doing here is straight stitching like we would on a sewing machine. If you have an embroidery only machine, but that machine has a counterpart, which is a sewing machine or a combo machine, then get that sewing bobbin and check with your local dealer for all of that information if you have problems. That can be helpful. So here I'm going to take and use my glue stick. This will show you how to use that. And I'm just going to place a couple little marks right in my upper square, or triangle really, where I'm going to place my fabric. Now I can easily see and easily feel that thread line. So I'm going to lay this fabric so that I have roughly a 1/4 inch of it hanging over or coming past that line. Not a reason to get really worried about it if it's more, because you can always trim it later. Now I place that down. Now I'm ready to stitch out step 3, which is going to be the tack down of that triangle. Oops, I'm going to stop and lift my needle and my foot because my needle came unthreaded. So we'll just rethread real quick. Just a second. Sometimes that happens with machines, right? Thank goodness for auto threaders. There we go. Now we'll start again. And we're doing the tack down of the top half of the half square triangle. Very simple. The half square triangle is probably the most often used block in quilting. And so getting used to making this block will be helpful for you because you're going to end up making a lot of them in your quilting journey. In fact, all 3 of the blocks in our basic set today are probably the 3 most often used blocks in the series, or in the quilting series. Alrighty, so now I've tacked that down. If, excuse me, this was way over this line, I could remove my hoop and I could take my scissors and I could just give it a little trim. If it's not straight, it doesn't matter. Just do the best you can. Another good reason to have scissors with a serrated edge, because you're going to get a really fine cut there. But as of course I've used my rotary blade with the pinking blade, I'm good to go. And I am not going to trim the outer edges because that gets trimmed when we trim the whole thing out of the stabilizer at the end. So no need to trim here or here at this point. So now the next thing I'm going to do is lay down my second fabric. But I should tell you that with piecing in the hoop, your first piece of fabric is always laid down right side up. You also get that information in the written instructions. So if this piece were going to be the print, say that was my first piece, I would lay it down right side up every time, no matter what. Now, with a second, third, fourth, or subsequent piece of fabric, you always lay it down right side down or right side together with your other fabric. Now, if you can see here, I've laid this down, and you'll see it in the picture diagram in the written instructions, where just a tiny bit of my other fabric is showing. I like to make sure and do that. Then I know this is placed exactly where I need it to be for a good seam. Now I'm going to place that in here. I'm going to bring my needle down and my foot down, and I'm going to do the step 4, which is going to stitch this together on top of piece number 1. Alrighty. Now, piece number 5, or step number 5, is what we call the flip and stitch. So we're not done, obviously. We have to get this to be like this. So what I like to do there, again, is take my glue stick, give myself a little bit right in that square, and I always put my glue right on my stabilizer if possible, because then I know exactly where my boundaries are for that, and I'm not putting it out here anywhere. Now I'm going to take this bottom piece of fabric and I'm going to flip it. So easy. Now it's stuck there because of the glue. Now I can take my seam roller and I can roll my seam and give it a nice little kind of a press there to get it nice and flat. Now eventually you're going to iron these as well, but that helps for the stitch out process. Now step number 5 is to stitch this on its outer border so that it's stitched down. And we can go ahead and proceed with that. Golly, my needle came unthreaded again. Again, that's okay. That's what automatic threaders are for, to make it easy. There we go. Now we'll just go ahead and stitch out step number 5. And sometimes I just keep my fingers there to kind of help it. That's also a good time to kind of use your stylus, so not to get your fingers in there by the needle and the foot. So now technically we've stitched out our half square triangle. Congratulations, you did it if you've been sewing along with me. However, there's one more step. Step 6 will be a stitch out all the way around the block. And you might ask why. Well, a couple of reasons. One, it's going to connect these pieces that are right here at the corner between the two fabrics, or if I had multiple fabrics, it would connect them all the way around. And that box will also become our guide for trimming and our guide for sewing our squares together. You'll see that more in the trimming part of this video. So now I can, if I like, just use a stylus to hold this down here. The thing you're trying to prevent is to have your foot from catching here and flipping this back and causing problems. It's always fixable, but who wants to have to fix it if we don't need to? So you can use a stylus, or what I like to do is use my embroidery tape here. I don't put embroidery tape all the way around because it's not needed. I just put it over that point there, and then I know that that's not going to catch. Now you're going to say, oh, well, you're going to put it down there as well. I could, but because my foot is going to go around in a clockwise direction, it's not going to catch here because it's going over that fold. Here it would be coming against the fold. So you can put tape there or not. Let's go ahead and do that stitch out and I'll show you what I mean. So it's going to start up here in the corner and it's going to stitch in a clockwise direction. So I wouldn't want it to catch that. And see, it doesn't because it slides right over it because of the tape. Now, when it comes here, I don't have to worry because it's going with that fabric. It's not going to catch. Now, if it makes you a little nervous, just put a little piece of tape there until you're more confident. That's also fine. So then when we go over to trimming in a little bit, I will take this and I will peel this tape off and then we will trim this out of the hoop. But congratulations, you just created your first half square triangle. That's how easy it is to create these squares in any size. This happens to be the 4-inch finish, but this could have been a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or any other size that you might happen to have. But in this set, we go up to 5 inches finished. So we'll talk about trimming in another part of the video. Let's move on to our quarter square triangle.